Hey everyone, this is Will from China and welcome to this brand new and exciting episode of The Missing Piece. Now, here's the question. When I say the word social movements, what are the things coming to your mind? In reality, nations across Asia, countries as Cambodia, Vietnam, and also Laos, the Philippines, etc. Younger generations today are changing not only the social, but also the political movements. It's so vibrant and so encouraging to see the modern younger generations across the world. They're generating what we call noises, or even some political scientists called disruptions. Because of the social changes and these social movements, political atmosphere is also changing as well. As you pay attention, previously from our episodes, we'll also talk about other countries, how the younger generations are changing the nations, not only socially, politically, but also culturally. For example, LGBT community has been very active. Not too long ago, I talked to one of the few experts and the scholars regarding why the LGBT community has become so vibrant and so exciting throughout the entire world. Now, in these exciting episodes, we are going to shift our gear. Let's come to the country called Switzerland. Not too long ago, roughly about 3 Sundays, more than 64.1% of the population in Switzerland voted one of the critical and important referendums, that is, to legalize the gay marriages. Now, for the country of Switzerland, something that you might not know. Number 1, Switzerland constitutes many international elements. So in other words, you will recognize there's a national language in this country. And second, historically speaking, this country has been one of the few conservative ones in the European side. So the question before I want to show you this interview that you might want to ask, or you might be interested in asking, how far has this country come along since the beginning of conservatism took roots? And second, by legalizing the same-sex marriage in Switzerland, how significant is that, especially towards the younger generations? And last but not least, for this country, since they legalized the same-sex marriage and other social movements and led by younger generations, how far will this country continue to proceed in terms of social and political agendas? It's so interesting that we don't normally think about Switzerland as the country so conservative or so liberal, or even today when we describe some of the countries in this political sense, as we say, polarization. But it's so interesting that Will sat down with one of the campaign managers, especially for this same-sex marriage movement. She shared with me why it was so significant to fight against the political status quo, and also why it's so significant to generate more noises today in this country in order to achieve the greater success. But anyway, this is the interview took place a few weeks ago between me and the campaign manager all the way from Switzerland. Again, before showing you this video, I still want to remind everyone, please continue to follow our channels for any latest episodes so that you're going to see a lot more updates from The Missing Piece. And second, please feel free to share our content with the friends around you. Remember, in this show, not only we talk about political issues, but also we address some of the cultural and also important international related matters happening around us. And last but not least, please don't forget, leave your comments and feedbacks at the end of the show, because Will enjoys watching every comments and also reading over your concerns and your feedbacks. And most importantly, we love to hear from people who have more advice or tips for this show. Again, everyone, this is Will from China. Thank you for watching. Now, enjoy the conversation. the LGBT in the Switzerland today. Now, let's get to the question right away. Again, when I read the news that in Switzerland, that was such astonishing and it was a groundbreaking result for the LGBT community. So I want to get to the question was, how significant was the result for the country?
Well, it was extremely significant. It was extremely significant because of the 64.1% of yes votes. This is a very high score for a vote in Switzerland. We often have votes where the one side or another is hoping for having 51%. So 64 is a very good result. And what is even more important is that every canton, every autonomous region of Switzerland, we have 26 of them, also voted yes. And this result is extremely important because, of course, we have very progressive, very urban areas like the city of Zurich, the well-known city of Geneva, but we also have cantons in the mountains that are quite conservative on social issues, so it's really not that easy to bring them to vote yes to a progressive social subject like same-sex marriage. So for us it was I must say, a surprise to see that all the cantons said yes, even the canton of Ticino, the Italian-speaking canton, that is considered being quite conservative, also because it's very Catholic. So every canton said yes, and I mean, okay, we're in 2021, so the time was really, really ripe for marriage equality. But still, for Switzerland, that is still quite a conservative country, it's a huge, it's a huge progress.
Now, most of our listeners and viewers aren't familiar with same-sex marriage and LGBT community in Switzerland. Now, before we get to the next question, can you help us briefly walk through before this referendum was approved and before the results came out, how challenging was it for the same-sex couples to live in that country?
Well, I guess that the acceptance level in the society towards LGBT people are like in every other Western European country. There's no huge difference, especially in the urbanized areas. The problem was that the civil partnership that allowed same-sex couples to have some kind of legal recognition of their relationship, it was only adopted in 2006, and people voted on the civil partnership. And the civil partnership actually, well, unlike France, the civil partnership was really reserved to same-sex couples, and of did not have the same rights and the same obligations as in marriage. The differences are on all levels. And the problem that it was only reserved to same-sex couples, so that means that a heterosexual couple only could decide to marry but not have a civil partnership, is that people in same-sex relationships had to be outed every time they filled in an official form. And in Switzerland, like in Western European country, you spend your life without official forms. So this was really considered as a huge problem by same-sex couples or LGBT people, because sometimes, for example, the workplace is not a safe place to come out, or other contexts where, well, people want to decide whether they out themselves or not. So this, for example, was a huge problem. So even if civil partnership in 2006 was also a progress for Switzerland and for the LGBT community, the differences with marriage were still extremely important.
So let's talk about the people outside Switzerland. And we know there are still a lot more countries. Recently I read a data that on the list, there are a lot more countries, especially located in Asia. LGBT community are continuing to face struggles and challenges, not just socially but politically. Of course, those people, they are very outspoken about their equality and their fairness. They deserve the same rights and the same treatment and respect from the government. And of course, on top of that will be from the family members, to understand where they're coming from. So from your perspective, and after going through the entire campaign and coming to this profound results, what kind of message would you send to the people in other parts of the world who are still struggling with this issue and not be able to understood and being appreciated or even legalized by the government? What would you say to them?
Well, of course, keep fighting, even if, it's easy for me to say it because Switzerland is a very rich country, where social progress at least is not considered, for example, by the government to be a problem, like in the whole Eastern Europe, where LGBT people are also extremely discriminated against. So, for me, doing a campaign for marriage equality, it's an extremely wonderful chance. It's really wonderful in a lot of countries, and in the most countries, fighting for LGBT rights is risking your life. So when I say keep fighting, I know that in some cases it's not possible, that people are dying because of this fight. There is no alternative to it. This is the problem, because LGBT people always existed. They will always exist, and they will always merit to have the same rights as non-LGBT people. So this is extremely difficult, and I think, of course, it is a huge problem that some governments are taking women's rights. It always goes together, women's rights and LGBT rights, and then they tell that both are problematic. The only strategy behind this is divide to reign, bad person, so the people can concentrate on them, and not on real issues that exist in countries, for example, corruption. So huge problem, but yeah, it's extremely cool to see that in Asian countries, we had, for example, an interview, had a long speech with the LGBT community in Japan. They contacted at the beginning of our campaign, and so with the support of Swiss embassy in Japan, we had a long Zoom meeting on those issues. It's extremely interesting to see that media is interested by those fights. That international LGBT organizations exist, like ILGA or All Out, or other organizations. I think it's yeah, it's. We know that this is the good fight to fight. We know that we're on the right side. So governments, especially the very authoritarian ones, well, one day will disappear. In my opinion, no authoritarian regime can last forever, and one day those rights will exist. Of course, it's still not a great solace for people who are fighting, who are risking their lives right now for this fight, but they will never see the result of their work. But one day it will be there. I'm sure.